Hello, everyone. It's welcome to the ninth week of our class. Let me mute that just so I don't hear myself. We are now streaming live. So this week, what's going on? So what do we got going on? We got the analytics assignment, which hopefully you turned in on time last night. Otherwise, get it in quickly to avoid any penalties, to avoid any more penalties, I should say. So hopefully that all went smoothly. I got a couple of questions about it for sure. But if you watch the videos, I think all the questions were pretty well answered in there. But let me know if they're, and I'll get the grades back as soon as I can. I also posted all the grades for the situation analysis today, so the group project should be done. And along with that, I also, for the situation analysis part of it, along with that, I posted the average grades for all the projects so far, right? The group project, the introduction, the situation analysis, the conceptual assignment, and so they're up there. And I've been telling the groups as I meet with them this comment, but just to kind of make it for everybody, this is the first time this class has been offered in this format, right? So I reserve the right, if necessary, at the end of the class to increase everyone's grade in order to meet the GPA that I try and target for an MBA elective, which is around a 3.2 to 3.4, right? So don't worry so much about your exact absolute grades, right? Worry a little bit more about whether, if you're doing under the class average, then you need to probably pop it up a little bit. And you're doing over the class average, that's fantastic, right? I would concentrate more on that than I would concentrate on the exact numbers you're getting right now, okay? Let's see what we got going on coming up. So the big thing this week is the group meetings. And so those are happening over the course of this week. I think one group still hasn't signed up, so if you could sign up, that'd be fantastic, so we get all of them scheduled. So far, it's worked really well for each of the groups just to set up whatever they normally use to talk, whether that be Google Hangouts or Moodle Collaborate, right? And then just invite me to that meeting, right? That seems to be working pretty well. So if everyone's okay with that, then I'm going to go with that in the future, right? That's the big next thing. I do want to spend some time. I'm going to talk a little bit about the conceptual assignment just so people understand what I was actually looking for there. A couple of people have asked for some description of what was kind of what the correct answers would be, so I'll spend some time on that in a little bit. But before I get to that, I do want to talk briefly about upcoming assignments, right? So we have, the individual assignments are done for the semester. No more individual assignments, so hooray for that. With the group project, though, of course, we still have a lot more going on. So the next big assignment coming up there is that on March 29th, so the end of this month, I need your marketing tactics and implementation section, right? So you got 2 weeks to work on that. And then about a month after that is the end of the class. So at that point, we've got everything due. Project presentations, final project document, web, social media content, final presentation, right? I've talked to a couple of groups about final project presentations because there's some question about that. Honestly, whatever works the best for you, let me know. But what I want to see by the time we're done is roughly somewhere in the vicinity of a 15 to 20-minute presentation about your group document, as if you're presenting to either the owners of the company or to a group of investors who are thinking about investing in the company in order to support this marketing plan, right? So present something along those lines. If you want to record that ahead of time and just have each member of the group kind of do their little bit, that's fine. If you want to just invite me to some sort of group hangout or collaborate and do it there, that's fine. And if none of those options seem to be working for you, let me know and we'll work something out, okay? So that's the big things I wanted to talk about with regards to those. So keep in mind, 2 weeks from today, tactics and implementation. We'll talk a little bit more about that in next week's office hour, right? But today, one of the things I wanted to talk about was the conceptual assignment, and just so everyone kind of is on the same board as to what I was looking for in terms of, say, not a perfect grade, I would say, but a grade that kind of covered everything really well. Okay, so question one, so this is talking about the Hearst magazines, right? And question one, what I was really looking for was two major things. One, that you identified the two major revenue streams of Hearst and how they had changed, right? And then the competitive analysis, right? And so I wanted to see you do both of those, right? And on the revenue streams, I was really looking for you to basically say that, hey, they used to make their money off of print sales and print advertising, and now they make their money off of digital sales and digital advertising and subscriptions, of course, print subscriptions and digital subscriptions, right? Which is a special form of sales, essentially, right? So that's what I would love to have seen you say at some point in order to get a big chunk of the credit. And then the other thing I wanted to see you say was that the competition has changed, right? That they have switched from competing against other beauty magazines and the like, right, to competing against YouTubers, bloggers, all sorts of other creators of content, right? On this kind of on the sales side, right? And then on the advertising side, they've gone from competing against other magazines for print advertising to even places like Google and Facebook and things like that, and YouTube for advertising, right? So I wanted to see some discussion of those two transitions. That was really what I want. That's kind of the core, and we talked about that a little bit in some of the class and some of the videos, as well as in the reading, right? So that's really what I wanted to see. Question two was about paid, earned, and owned content, right? And honestly, there's a number of ways you could have answered this question, but what I really wanted you to see you say was that was tied directly back to revenue, right? So increasing brand awareness does not increase revenue, right? Like by itself, right? You have to explain how increasing brand awareness could lead to revenue, right? So for instance, on the paid side, right, if you said Cosmo can take out ads on social media channels, people can click through those ads, and then they can subscribe on the site. That's a clear relationship about how paid goes to revenues, right? Earned, right? Or sorry, let's talk with owned. Owned's easier, right? So owned revenue, right? You could talk about the fact that when they have content, it creates a place where people go on their own social media channels. It creates a place where people to go to them on a regular basis, think of them as a thought leader, intellectual leader in the space, right? And then they start to say, hey, this Cosmo brand is really strong. Maybe I should subscribe to them on a regular basis. And as a result, they do that. Earned content, right? This is content that they don't generate themselves, but someone else generates about them, right? And this could happen actually in a direct way, right? Like if I'm posting an article about on Cosmo that other people find really interesting, I get bloggers to link to it. Bloggers then click, other people reading that blog click through to the Cosmo website, read the original article, decide that they really like the content in there, and decide to subscribe, right? Something like that. And of course, you could also talk about the advertising revenue, right? So owned content can generate advertising revenue, right? Cosmo's main website generates advertising revenue, right? Different explanations along those lines. Earned content doesn't really generate advertising revenue directly, but can generate advertising revenue indirectly when people click through to the website, right? So that's what I wanted to see. I think the biggest problem people had was kind of leaving it in some sort of, like the question specifically asked about revenue, right? And a lot of people left it as kind of some sort of amorphous, generates brand interest or generates brand awareness, right? And that was the biggest problem people got points out for. Question 3 was about the target demographics. What I really wanted, show there was that you had researched and found what Cosmo's target demographic was. Their press kit actually spells it out exactly, so that wasn't easy. It's like one of the first hits on Google when you look it up. And then I wanted you to identify a channel that had a large overlap with that target demographic. So if you provided evidence to me that Cosmo's target demographic, what Cosmo's target demographic was, and you provide evidence that the channel you recommended was also also matched that demographic, and then you justified why they would use that particular channel, you got full credit on that, basically. So a lot of people either provide evidence for one or the other. and didn't provide evidence for both. That was the big problem I saw with the logic. Question 4. This is the question that probably caused people the most points loss, right? And this is the idea that the objectives need to be SMART. SMART is, as we've talked about in class several times now, is specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, or time-bound. As I also mentioned in class, sometimes assignable is also attainable. I kind of took, basically examined both, but attainable and assignable mean roughly the same thing in this context, right? A specific means you have to mention a particular number, right? So like 10% increase, 20% increase, something like that. Measurable means you indicate how it's actually going to be measured. Assignable means, or attainable means, that you provide some evidence of who is going to do it or how it's going to get done, right? That like you're going to use social media advertising to increase click-through by 10%, right? Like, and talk about how that's happening. Realistic, I didn't really, if you were specific and time-bound and measurable, you got full credit pretty much for being realistic unless the numbers were completely out of whack, right? Like unless you were saying we're going to get 1 million views or something ridiculous in one day, right? Which, high, but maybe realistic. And then the KPIs, right? Some people got a point off here or there just because when you're describing a KPI, you can't describe a KPI independent of the objective. It has to be in the context of an objective or a goal. So I wanted to see a relationship between the KPIs and the objectives. Question 5. Question 5 discusses creating a reaction plan, right? And the biggest thing I saw here is that, I mentioned the Kardashian, I didn't even mention the Kardashian example. I said, as talked about in the article, there are some examples, right? I did not want you to develop a specific response to that example. I wanted you to develop a general framework for examples like that, right? And as we talked about in the video lectures, right, there are a couple of different kind of choice points you have to look at, right? What do you do if the response is positive or negative? What do you do if the comment is false or true? What do you do if the comment is judged to be going to be insignificant versus something that's going to potentially have a long impact, right? And what do you do if you need to respond urgently versus non-urgently, right? So if you had a policy that addressed all those comments, and I try to be fairly liberal about like trying to give you partial credit if I thought you were answering some of those, but not all of them. But in general, I was looking for a policy and not a specific response, right? I didn't want you to say like, that Hirsch should come out and apologize immediately for the Kardashian cover, right? That's a specific response. That's not a general policy for how to respond, right? I also saw a lot of questions that were about how to prevent the incidents from happening in the first place. When I saw those, I gave you at least some partial credit for that, right? But that wasn't what the question asked for. The question asked for a reaction to a social media, negative social media, or a social media response, right? Not negative or positive. So that was what I was looking for. If you have any questions on that, a lot of people have, not a lot of people, but a couple of people have emailed me already about the conceptual assignment. But if you have more questions, let me know. Okay. So yeah, going forward, I'll be grading the analytical exam in the near future. You'll see user experience and web design tutorials up soon. And the next thing to think about is that in 15 minutes, for 2 weeks, we have 14 days is what I was thinking. 14 days, your next group assignment is due, which is the last check-in assignment, the tactics and implementation. Right? And we have group meetings every day, so or the rest of this week. So please come prepared to the group meetings. Any questions? You have all gotten your situation analysis comments back now. Some of the early groups didn't. I'm happy to discuss those, and we can go over those in detail as well. Okay. So I think that's it for today. Hope everything's going well, and shoot me an email if you have any additional questions. Take care, everybody.